I'd come home after work and tell myself, tonight I'm going to use my evening differently. But almost without noticing, I'd fall back into the same cycle. Eat dinner quickly, grab my phone, get lost in videos, social media, series I wasn't even really following. When I looked at the clock, it was already past midnight, and along with the sleepiness came the frustration. Another day spent with nothing new, another piece of my life handed over to a routine without purpose. That's when I realized something painful, yet freeing. My evenings were my greatest asset, and I was throwing them away as if they had no value. The time after work is the only part of the day when you're free from outside demands, and precisely because of that, it's the part that most reveals who you're really choosing to be. When I changed the way I lived my evenings, everything started to align. My identity, my energy, even my money. Because every well-used evening is an investment in the future you say you want. If you feel like you're wasting your nights, hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and stick with me. I'm going to share 5 things that turned my evenings into construction, not escape. First thing, I created a space for clarity before anything else. When I first tried changing my evenings, I realized it was pointless to just fill the time with productive things if my mind was still overloaded from the day. I'd come home exhausted, full of scattered thoughts, piled up worries, endless mental dialogues. If I simply sat down to study or plan, nothing flowed. I'd get distracted, give up, and go back to my phone. That's when I understood my evenings needed to start with clarity. Not perfect clarity, but a little space to empty myself before filling up again. I started with something simple, 10 minutes in silence. No TV, no notifications, no talking. Sometimes I'd write down everything that was on my mind in a notebook. Other times I'd just breathe and let the thoughts pass. It was almost like cleaning the room before arranging the furniture, and the difference was huge. Suddenly, I didn't feel like a slave to exhaustion anymore. My body relaxed, my mind slowed down, and for the first time I had real energy to direct my night. It doesn't matter if your day was heavy, confusing, or chaotic. If you create a space for clarity before anything else, you take back control. And in that space, you can plant any habit that will sustain the woman you're becoming. Comment: my nights begin with clarity. If you also understand that before producing, you need to organize yourself on the inside. Second thing, I turned part of my evening into practical learning. For a long time, my evenings were only about shutting my brain off. I'd come home from work and say, I deserve to rest. And yes, I did deserve it, but I confused rest with distraction. I'd watch whatever, scroll on my phone for hours, and call that relaxing. The problem was, the next day I'd wake up the same, tired, unsatisfied, stuck. Until one day I asked myself, what if instead of just shutting down, I used part of my evenings to light something up inside me? I decided at least 1 hour would be dedicated to practical learning. Nothing too theoretical, nothing out of reach. Books on finance, short courses, videos that helped me solve real problems. It wasn't about studying out of obligation. It was about planting seeds that would bear real fruit. At first it was hard. My body wanted the couch and a series. But each night I chose to learn. Even when I was tired, something inside me grew stronger. I went to bed with the feeling that I'd made progress, even without leaving the house. And you know what's most curious? That habit started changing my identity. From someone who just killed time, to someone who builds with the time they have. Now I don't give up that hour for anything. Because I know each little bit of nighttime learning is an investment in the unrecognizable future I'm creating. Comment: my nights also teach me. If you've realized that applied knowledge is one of the fastest ways to transform your tomorrow. Third thing, I used my evenings to take care of my body and my energy. For a long time, I believed that taking care of my body was a luxury for people who had extra time. After a full day of work, the last thing I wanted was to think about exercise, food, or sleep routines. My mind would say, you've already done enough, now relax. And that relaxing always turned into heavy food, the couch, and screens until late at night. The next morning, guess what? I'd wake up even more tired than the night before. That's when I realized my body wasn't just a consequence of my day, it was also the foundation of my evening. If I treated my energy as a priority, my nights could become a place of recovery, not of more exhaustion. I started small. I swapped heavy dinners for lighter meals. I did quick stretches before bed. I set limits on screen time after a certain hour. It wasn't about becoming an athlete. It was about respecting my body enough so it could carry me into the next day. Over time, these small steps became rituals, and each night turned into an opportunity to recharge instead of draining myself even more. Today, my energy is my most valuable asset, and I've learned that when I take care of my body, I also take care of my mind, my mood, my discipline, and even my financial clarity. Comment. My body is part of my construction. If you've also realized that well-cared-for nights sustain much more powerful days. Fourth thing, I turn my evenings into strategic planning. For a long time, I lived as if each day was a surprise. I'd wake up rushing, putting out fires, just handling whatever showed up. By the time evening came, I was so drained that all I wanted was to switch off. And the result was predictable. At the end of the week, it felt like I'd worked a lot but advanced very little. It was only when I stopped and thought, if I don't decide my next hours, someone else will. And usually it won't be in the direction I want. So I started using part of my evenings to plan. Nothing complicated, nothing full of impossible goals. I'd take a notebook and write down 3 priorities for the next day. 3 things that, if accomplished, would make the day worthwhile. That habit changed everything. I'd wake up knowing exactly what needed to be done. I felt in control, not just reacting to whatever the world threw at me. Over time, I expanded the planning. I started setting weekly goals, reviewing my finances, prepping meals, even organizing clothes to make my routine easier. And I realized that the sense of clarity before bed was almost as restorative as sleep itself. Today, my evenings aren't an end. They're a new beginning. And I've learned that planning doesn't steal freedom. On the contrary, it multiplies it. Comment. My nights decide my days. If you also understand that freedom starts when you deliberately choose what you're going to build tomorrow. Fifth thing. I used my evenings to create, not just consume for a long time. My evenings were only about consumption. Consumption of shows, social media, news, things I didn't even remember the next day. And all of it gave me a false sense of rest. But deep down, it was just anesthesia. I wasn't building anything. I was just distracting myself until I fell asleep. Until one question hit me. What if, instead of just consuming, I started creating? Not creating in the sense of becoming an artist or an entrepreneur overnight. Creating as an act of giving shape to something that only existed inside me. Writing down ideas, sketching a project, organizing my financial goals, testing a recipe, producing something that carried my signature. That first week, it felt strange. I was so used to passively receiving that creating felt like it demanded too much. But soon I noticed the difference. Falling asleep after consuming left me empty. Falling asleep after creating left me fulfilled. It was in that space that project ideas were born, extra income plans, even deep reflections on who I wanted to become. And that creative energy started overflowing into the rest of my life. Today, I consume less and create more. And it's exactly this habit that made me feel my evenings finally have purpose. Comment. My nights are creative. If you've also decided to stop numbing yourself and started using your time to build something that's truly yours. Looking at my evenings today is like looking at a reflection of my own transformation. Before, they were hours wasted on distractions that left me with nothing but fatigue and regret. Now they're the most valuable part of my day, because it's in them that I plant what I want to harvest tomorrow. These 5 things aren't magical or complicated. They're simple, but they require awareness, creating clarity, learning with intention, taking care of the body, planning on purpose, and turning part of the time into creation, not just consumption. It was by applying this that my nights stopped being empty and started being fertile. And when you begin to live like this, inevitably, your life falls into alignment. Because every nighttime choice is a silent investment that sooner or later shows up in your behavior, your money, your energy, and even in the way you see yourself. You don't need to change everything at once. Pick one of these practices, apply it today, sustain it for a few days, and then start adding more. In just a few weeks, you'll notice the time was always there. What was missing was intention. Comment. My nights now have purpose, if you've also decided to turn this space into an ally for your growth. And of course, if this content resonated with you, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share it with someone who also deserves to stop wasting their nights and start truly living.